Hello. So it is time for us to talk about our first VGC draft in a little while. Actually, um, we are returning to the UBL VGC division just as well as the singles division. I mentioned this in the singles draft analysis, which, by the way, go check out because I'm playing in both divisions of the UBL. It is my home for draft. And it's been a little bit. I played like a couple weeks of Season 4 before kind of dropping out because I just dropped basically everything to do with draft for like a couple months. Because I just overdid it. But we're back for VGC. I've had a break and I'm excited to come back. So, it's been a bit, so I'm going to be a little rusty on VGC. As well as it's a different format. So we're actually playing, depends on how you word it, some people word it differently, but basically either Series 10 no restricted or Series 9 no Dynamax, whichever way you want to put it. So no restricted, no Dynamax. So I think we're going to be playing on Series 9 and just you don't Dynamax because they've removed Series 10 ladder from Showdown as an option. Maybe we can find a way to challenge it. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But there's no Dynamaxing, and I didn't really play a lot of Series 10 to be honest. So a format without Dynamaxing, really my best experience of that is like when we played like 2 seasons of VGC 2019. So you know it's and that was a while ago. That was almost a year ago. So we did take UBL Season 1 when there was no Dynamaxing, but our team was cracked in UBL Season 1. So, all things to note, it's 11 Pokemon you have to get, as well as 110 points. So, drafts were at least going to be a little bit thinner. There's also 16 coaches, unlike singles division, which only had 12. Meaning that Pokemon were going to be spread a lot thinner as well. So, it was going to be interesting. I had no idea what to go for. As with singles, I didn't have a plan. But unlike singles, I'm actually a lot happier with this team. Just something about it, like, I think it's... We'll get into the team, obviously in just a second, but I don't know why, but the team feels really right, and it feels really... Like, it feels like it's going to be really natural for me to use, which I'm excited about. Using some Pokemon I haven't used in draft, some Pokemon I have. And yeah, I think that's everything. Some funny stuff did happen with the draft. It took a little bit longer than we expected. But for the most part, everything kind of ended up going good. Not too badly, so. Anyway. As for me, though, I got a position that I'm not a fan of. Probably my least favourite position, to be exact, and that is last. Now, a lot of people like the wheel pick, and I understand why, but for me, a lot of my draft strategy comes from being able to analyse what people want, and be able to take advantage of that and make my picks accordingly. Whereas when I'm on the wheel, I can't do that. And it's obviously understand. Well, you know, you can grab your pairs and things like that. But I didn't want to rely on like just going with modes of teams, especially when I don't know. To me, what are the best synergies for modes? I can say that like these are certain modes of my team, of my draft, but I didn't want to have modes that I didn't think synergized well. So. I think my Season 3 team actually did a really good job of just having a lot of modes that did synergize, you know, because it was Colossal, Virizion, Sneasel, Dragonite. They were all had incredible synergies together, and then I had a really cohesive Trick Room strategy. And then kind of a good amount of good stuff as well to go with it all. But I didn't have a plan for this one, so... I kind of, like, it got to me, so I just, as soon as I found out I was last, I was like, well, honestly, I don't even want to make a plan. Because, like, what's the point of me making a plan when I'm last? So, it eventually got to me, and I looked at what was left, with my 2 picks. And I was trying to decide on a pair to pick, because I was like, okay, I'm not going to get another pick for ages. I want this pair to at least have some synergy together, whether it's just whether it's offensive synergy, whether it's a supporter and an offensive Pokemon, or just whether it's something that, like, if it's just a dual core that, like, really has to be respected. And looking at what was left, I kind of went with a mixture of the first and the second option, so let's talk about it. So the first Pokemon I saw, that I decided I wanted, was actually something we've actually used before in doubles. And that is Tapu Koko. I used this in UBL Season 2, and I definitely could have used it better in UBL Season 2. It was definitely one of the stars of the show, though. Koko is a very, very versatile Pokemon, and in my opinion at least, probably gets better with no Dynamax. Offensive Koko sets become a lot better, because, like Choice Spec sets, because Choice Spec's Dazzling Gleam does really good damage, Choice Spec's Thunderbolts does really good damage. Those sets become a lot more viable because, you know, you're dealing really good damage, and there's no Pokemon that are going to outbulk you by maxing. But Koko is also really good because of the support sets as well. Koko's incredibly high base speed to start off the draft, which I thought was a really good thing as well. Just having a super high base speed off the bat, a nice fast electric type, and a fairy type too. You know how picky I am, at least with fairies and singles, but with doubles, I feel like I'm a little bit more lenient. There's a lot of support options. You know, you've got Light Screen as an option, Taunt, Electro Web, so immediately some form of speed control, Nature's Madness, and you've got the ability to pivot, and I said this before, but Koko is a very hard Pokemon to pin down a lot of the time, just due to, like, how fast it is, and it can pivot in and out if it needs to, and play, like, a support pivot role, if it, in some situations. I think it did lose some stuff, especially, like, losing Z-Moose from Gen 7 when I last used it, but the upside of, you know, people not being able to Z-move you back, there's no Dynamax that's just going to make Koko a lot less of an offensive threat, and it has physical sets as well. I've only talked about, like, specs and, like, support, but it has higher physical attacks, so things like Wild Charge, it doesn't unfortunately get Plate Rough, which kind of sucks, but Wild Charge on the physical side is still going to do really good damage, as well as access to Brave Bird, which will be kind of useful for some, maybe the bulkier grass types that want to come in and maybe try and check this thing. It has that option, so it can play a supportive or offensive role, depending on the matchup, which is something I found valuable, especially in such an expensive Pokemon. This was 17 points, so it has Iron Defense as well. I don't think that would ever come into play. Safeguard actually could come into play. There are options. I could see situations where that would come into play. Same with Thunderwave. Like, it's got an Eerie Impulse as well. There's a ton of, like, really niche support options that it gets. I think Koko can utilize really well due to its high speed stat. So, I thought this was a great starting point, especially with, like, everything else gone. I'm just gonna double check. Just I've got the tab open, the draft open in another tab, so I can kind of see the other stuff that was, like, taken round 1. So, like, you know, Indeedee was gone, Rillaboom was gone, Lecky was even gone, Wim's gone. But both Landos had gone, Incin had gone, Dragapult was gone. Like, there was so many, like, versatile Pokemon that were already gone. Even Indeedee female was gone. And I was just like, this is a really, like, versatile Pokemon that I'm happy picking. Alongside it, I thought, okay, well, I've got a really, like, cool versatile support Pokemon. Let's pair some offense with it. And the Pokemon I thought that would pair quite well with it is one of Koko's main weaknesses, you know, doesn't like ground types for the most part. It's got Grass Knot, but there's not a lot of the time will that be enough to really threaten some ground types. So let's pair it with a really powerful Pokemon that loves just eating water types, ground types alive. It is a very powerful water type, and its name is Dracovish. So immediately we're building up we've got a fairy and a dragon, but we've also got a very, very powerful water type. Dracovish is strong, even with strong jaw scarf, or strong jaw plus electro web. Immediately, just off the bat, that's a scary combination. Pairing a water and electro type together just immediately covers each other really well. Again, the only thing that really bothers this is grass types, which there aren't many good ones of. There's Rillaboom, there's Kartana, there's Amoonguss, and then after that you're probably looking at like Tangrowth Tangela. Yeah, there's not many great grass types, and so already this combination is very scary. Dracovish, it does one thing, and it does one thing very, very well. It clicks the Fisher Surrender button, and it wins the game, because Fisher Surrender is dumb. It has coverage options. You know, it has Ice Fang, it has EQ, Rock Slide, Stomping Tantrum, Zen Headbutt, Psychic Fangs, which is much better than Zen Headbutt. It has some coverage options, even has Leech Life, which actually isn't bad against certain grass types. But for the most part, you're going to want to click the Fishy button, because the fish is strong, and especially with Strong Jaw, yeah, it just does insane damage. I was obviously keeping my eyes open on Sand Rush. Maybe we go Sand. Because that opens up even more opportunities for this Pokemon to be insane. But even just picking this off the bat, I was like, Koko Dracovish just seems like such a really potent combination that people already have to respect. Dracovish is almost never ever wanting to play a support role, so I'm not even going to consider that possibility. Because why would you use something like Super Fang when Fisher's Rend will do just about as much damage, if not probably more, to pretty much anything. Very few Pokemon want to deal with Dracovish, and a lot of them that do, such as bulky water types, Koko will eat alive. So as I say, it's pretty much just grass types, and we've got another 9 Pokemon to fix that problem. So, really strong start, but definitely a top-end start for sure. We picked 2 17-pointers off the bat, and that meant we've got to find some cheaper stuff. But we had to wait 30... What'd it be? 30 picks? Just 30 picks overall. Before it came back to us. Something... As I kind of started this, I was like, okay, maybe I can start to build up some kind of a plan. But I knew there was something I wanted, and that was... Obviously, it's already a great start for a fast mode. Let's maybe start to flesh out a bit of a slower mode, so we have the option to go for a slower mode. Maybe we can focus on a Trick Room side of things, and maybe get some supporting Pokemon for that. So, just double checking the 2 that I did get. Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure I had a really nice Fake Out user, that I felt like would be good at supporting for Trick Room, specifically. I also wanted Intimidate, and, well, mainly Incineroar does that, but there's a couple other Pokemon that can do that quite well. Notably Hitmontop, that was a little bit more expensive, or, Pokemon I ended up going with, Scrafty. Scrafty was one of the cheaper options, well, cheaper as in, it was 13 points. But Intimidate plus Fake Out is already a good enough reason to use this Pokemon. Sure, it's times 4 weak to Fairy, and we've got 2 Pokemon that are weak to Fairy right now. However, again, we've got another 8 Pokemon to fill that out with. Scrafty in general is actually quite bulky, but still can deal reasonable damage. And also, it doesn't have to run Intimidate. If it's not playing a bulky support role and actually wants to go on the offensive, and maybe be a slower sweeper, it has the ability to use Moxie. Otherwise, it's still, even if it is just here to set up help set up Trick Room, it still does reasonable damage. You know, it has Drain Punch or Close Combat. It has Close Combat. Yeah, it's Close Combat or Lash Out or just Crunch or Throat Chop or just great coverage. For the most part, is probably going to be playing the role of a support Pokemon on this team. That is what Scrafty tends to do quite well, due to Intimidate and Fake Out, which is a great combination. And with a Pokemon like Koko that can get into Scrafty quite easily, already makes that really solid. Just being able to pivot in and out. It can do some cool stuff. You know, it has Dragon Dance itself, so it can set up. It has coaching, but it is coaching on the slower side. So it'd have to be coaching something slow. Or be in Trick Room, and then be slower than the Pokemon I'm coaching, like Dracovish. Which that could be a thing, but then I'd have to be slow on Dracovish, but not too slow. Because, you know, there's all the Pokemon that, unless they're like a super fast team, it's really awkward. Like, coaching with Scrafty isn't the best. As just a fake out support Pokemon, it's a slow fake out user, like compared to some other Pokemon, like that get fake out, I can easily be out faked out. The advantage of Intimidate really helps out this Pokemon, compared to some other Pokemon. So, and while it's not, I basically trade a point for a ×4 weakness, and I think Hitmontop was actually taken by this point. Again, I can double check that, because I have the ability to. Yeah, Hitmontop was taken, so there was no way I was getting Hitmontop. Hitmontop went round 2, going back down. So I wasn't gonna get Hitmontop. I could have considered Mienshao, but I already knew I had a fast mode already, and I didn't want to go too fast. I wanted to slow it down a bit, so that's why we've got Scrafty. So, as for talking about this Trick Room mode, though, I knew I wanted my setter. Getting the sweeper would be the easy part. Getting the setter that I wanted would be the harder one. I was looking at a couple. My first thought was the Mashana. Mashana was my first thought. But then I saw how much Mashana was, and I thought, that is overpriced for Mashana. I'm not picking Mashana for 9 points. Like, that's extortionate for a Pokemon like that. I'm like, no way. So I looked at what else was around that price range. I saw a different Pokemon. I was like, this Pokemon seems way better for the price point. Like, I do understand the greatness of Mashana. Like, it's a great Pokemon. But I felt it was way too expensive for what it was. So I was like, no, I'm not going to pick it. I'm going to pick this Pokemon instead, because I think this Pokemon has both more utility and more offensive potential. And that Pokemon, maybe a little less utility, but it's definitely got a little bit more of an oomph behind it. And that is actually Slowking. So, the thing with Slowking was, my first thought was literally, it has Oblivious. So it's not forced to run a Mental Herb to avoid Taunt to set up Trick Room. It's also very slow, 30 speed, it's the same as Amoonguss. It also has a reasonable special attack with that 100 special attack, and a really good amount of coverage. Between its Dual Stab, and even just Ice and Fire, but then you've got, you got random coverage of like Power Gem and Shadow Ball for some reason, Focus Blast as well, and some ground type moves on the physical side. It has a really good amount going for it, and even more probably than I even realized. It has really cool things like Yawn, which is a really good move. Just being able to take something out of commission. I don't think it's Reflect and Light Screen. But even just Light Screen is still pretty solid. It can Icy Wind, it can Heal Pulse. Like, these are really nice supporting options. It's not as many as I'd say, like Mashana. And it also means we have a second Water type on the team, but this does not share any weaknesses with Dracovish, and they function as two very different Pokemon. So, I'm really excited to try Slowking. Again, I think even Heal Pulse is, like, super cool. The skill swap possibilities. There's even opportunities to set up with Slowking itself with Nasty Plot, which is really cool, and just start doing some really good damage by itself in Trick Room. A lot of the time, sometimes the issue is, getting the actual Trick Room Sweeper in, but if you put enough pressure on with your actual support and setter, then they're forced to at least try and remove you before the actual Sweeper gets to come in. It was something I liked about my my Trick Room mode back in UBL Season 3, because I had Dusknoir, which dealt pretty good damage. Kangaskhan, who dealt reasonable damage, before bringing in Scavalier, who was the main Trick Room Sweeper. And this is kind of the same deal, where Scrafty does pretty reasonable damage, especially with things like close combat. And Slowking has really good coverage, and can still play a supporting role by setting Trick Room. So I'm really excited to try out Slowking here. And again, it was the same price as Mashana, and I thought, for that price, I'd rather have Slowking. Sure, it's a second water type, but like, it just feels like this fits way better. Like, it just feels like a better Pokemon, and it even has the the option of running Regenerator if it wants to, and play it's a little bit of an Amoonguss role where you can pivot out. So, but again, Oblivious with Trick Room just felt like it just so good. So that is Slowking. So then we had to wait a while. And again, I'm gonna have a quick look. But I believe, yeah, so looking at what was left, I knew I had to fix up my weakness against grass. Grass was going to be an issue with what I'd already drafted, and especially with something else that I'm picking, I knew grass was going to be an issue. So I wanted to pick up at least a fire type and a flying type in the course of the rest of the draft. Ones that I would feel comfortable bringing. However, there's a lot of bad flying types. But there was one that really stuck out to me, that I've been wanting to use it in doubles draft for so long. And it's actually a Pokemon I actually really, really like. But I've just not really had the possibility of using it in doubles. In singles, I've had a bit of experience with the Pokemon. And it's actually one of my more preferred Pokemon in singles. And so I wanted to give it a shot in doubles. And that is Tornadus variant form. Much cheaper than its brother in Tornadus incarnate form. But it has a couple small advantages over Torn-Eye. Torn-Eye is usually considered the better one, literally due to Prankster Tailwind. But Torn-T has a couple things extra going for it. At least to me. The higher base speed and a better natural bulk means it's not actually forced to run a focus sash a lot at the time. Meaning that it can actually afford to run other items that may be more useful, and maybe bulk up on it a bit more, even giving it something like a Citrus Berry to keep it alive more and actually be able to be used more, like in a utility way. On top of that, again, that high base speed gives me a really fast Tailwind user. So this really solidifies my fast mode. I've got a Tailwind user that I can even use with Dracovish, which is really nice. Obviously, it gets other speed control in Icy Wind as well. But at least for me, I'm not afraid to go offensive with this thing as well. And I don't want to treat Torn-T like it's just purely support Pokemon, when it can do things like Nasty Plot. While it will have to ride a Hurricane for big damage, you can definitely go with just Air Slash. As well as some coverage with like Heat Wave as well. It could also pivot, and this was something, as dumb as it sounds, like Slowking Torn would actually be amazing in singles, but in doubles, the regen stuff isn't as useful because, it's only 4 Pokemon or whatever, but in singles, obviously, this would be amazing. But it's more so the fact that it can pivot between Koko as well. And having the ability to pivot between Koko and Torn, and reposition, like, board states a lot easier. Having these two Pokemon that can really pivot out, and especially, like, Torn does not mind pivoting out due to Regenerator, means it can play a bulky pivot role, on the team that it may not have been, like, a Torn Eye often doesn't. It's there to lead Focus Sash, maybe Tailwind, maybe Taunt something, maybe Icy Wind something for a rando Hurricane, and deal some decent damage. But for the most part, you don't see Torn Eye going really on the offensive, and often it's forced to run a Focus Sash. Whereas I feel like Torn T isn't. It's a little bit more bulky and actually has some long-term applications in the battle, due to that higher base speed and better natural bulk. So I'm excited I'm really excited to use Torn T. I'm really, really excited. I didn't get to actually pick it up in singles, so I get to use it in doubles instead. It's kind of weird that in singles I've actually got Torn Eye, which is the worst of the two, and in doubles I've got Torn T, which is the worst of the two. I've kind of switched around which ones I wanted in which place, but in fairness, I wouldn't really use Torn Eye in doubles draft. I'm not a fan of Torn Eye, unless I was specifically using it in Rain. But Torn T I feel much more comfortable with. Again, this is a Pokemon I love to death, so I'm really excited to use it. Again, this really helps solidify my fast mode, and it gives me a Pokemon that's really good into grass types. Torn T in singles at least is considered an extremely good Pokemon into grass types. So having that partnered with Dracovish, and you're starting to see why I wanted this core in particular between Koko, Dracovish, and Torn. There's not a lot of Pokemon that can realistically switch into it. And deal with this immense support plus offensive pressure, because all three of them can still deal really good, pretty reasonable damage, while Dracovish is the main breaker between them and just wants to clean up. So again, there's no Dynamax, so Dracovish just really destroys everything. But speaking of Dracovish, I kind of hinted at it before, but I considered Sand, and after looking at it, I wanted Sand. So Gigalith. I prefer Gigalith over T-Tar. I think T-Tar might have been taken as well by this point. I think it was actually, because someone else has T-Tar Dracozolt. But Gigalith is my preferred. It's the second cheapest. Hippowdon's the cheapest, but I really don't like Hippowdon, especially in doubles. Whereas Gigalith actually performs multiple roles on this team. First of all, obviously, it has Sandstream, and that's really important for Dracovish. With two really fast pivoters, it means we can lead something like Koko or Torn with Dracovish, and then immediately, if we don't like our board positioning, we can pivot one of the two out into Gigalith and immediately give that Dracovish speed boost with the Sand Rush. Meaning the Dracovish can run a Choice Band, or a Life Orb, or something else, to make up for the lost damage, while improving its speed massively. Gigalith also has the highest attack stats on the team. 135. Gigalith can very easily be our Trick Room sweeper. And you might be surprised to hear that, but 135 attack with Stab Rock Slides and Stone Edges and Superpowers and EQs, as well as options to do Iron Defense Body Press. It has Wide Guard, which actually may come in handy against Psy Spam. It really actually has a lot more utility in it, I think it really expects. It can explode as well, if it really wants to. But the reasonable amount of coverage that this Pokemon gets actually makes it pretty good in Trick Room. It's also the only unfortunate thing is it is slower than Slowking, which I think wouldn't be ideal. I think I would prefer... There's going to be situations which I'm going to prefer one faster than the other, but due to their really close speeds between 25 and 30, especially having Gigalith slower than Amoonguss is quite nice as well. Though I don't expect this to be killing Amoonguss, especially like physically offensive Amoonguss for sure. But because they're so close in speed, I can actually like customize them. So like it's like, okay, so I want to run min speed Gigalith, then but I also want to run min speed Slowking. But it's like, well, I actually want my Gigalith to be faster or slower in Trick Room, and so I can just increase the IVs on speed just slightly, just in case it's like, okay, I want to buff it up somehow, or I don't know. There's like certain situations I could see. I don't know what situations, but like because they're so close in speed, like there are options to do to make one faster than the other. So Gigalith is going to be one of our actual Trick Room sweeper options, which is pretty cool. Again, Gigalith is a Pokemon I like, and it also means we have Sand in both singles and doubles, which is kind of funny. Not my intention originally going in, but after picking up Dracovish, I immediately started looking at Sand possibilities. You have to excuse me, I'm dying for a drink. My throat's killing me. Because I think... Yep, that's my music going away. That means I've been talking for like half an hour. Here we go. Let me... Yeah, that sounds good. Alright. So yeah. Sorry, I'm dying for a drink. So yeah, Gigalith gives us that sun option. That I was looking at. I saw it as an opportunity and makes, again, this draft a lot more versatile, which is something I really like. I actually don't like this song. Let me see if I've got thingy on. There it is. Nope. Where is it? There we go. Got the actual DX version. I paused the music. I'm really good at this, by the way. So yeah, Gigalith, really good Pokemon. Have it in both singles and doubles. Also has Scrafty in both singles and doubles, and I have a version of Torn in both singles and doubles. So definitely some similarities. But it was like, whatever. Never my plan, but, you know, it's fine. Going back, I also wanted to pick up Gigalith because while I saw someone else had Sand, I saw something as an option. Because people, you know, there's another person at the other end of the wheel or something like that. I didn't want someone to just pick up, like, as a pair, Gigalith Excadrill and just slap it on their team. I wanted to grab Gigalith now. And I was definitely looking at Excadrill as well. But I was like, Excadrill is a little too expensive for my team right now. Probably shouldn't consider it. But I at least wanted to make sure I got Gigalith so people couldn't just go, I'm going to slap Gigalith Excadrill onto my team. And, you know, we'll make it good. Like, I took the better of the two partners for that, and if they wanted to go with Excadrill, they'd have to go with Hippowdon or Hippopotas, so that's why we got Gigalith this early. As for the next pick, Excadrill did end up going, and I was like, well, that sucks. I was actually considering it, but even though it would have made my... I ended up making a plan that actually did involve Excadrill, and I was like, well, that does suck. The person who took it, I tried to, you know, bargain with them and be like, hey, do you maybe will not want Excadrill because you do have a Lando T and a Metagross? And they were like, no, I actually want Excadrill. And I was like, fine. So I used to kind of plan around that, and I didn't really know what to do. Because Excadrill was actually my planned Steel type, which was something I was missing for the team. I wasn't really sure what to do at this point, so I kind of went with some of the other Pokemon that I had planned. As I kind of mentioned previously, I wanted to make sure that grass types were at least somewhat fearful, and we made a start with that with Torn. But I wanted a fire type as well, and if I was gonna, you know, since my original plan had Excadrill on it, I needed some cheaper stuff, and so I was looking at a cheaper fire type. And this one, I don't know why, because I've never really had an attachment to this Pokemon, but for some reason it's just stuck out to me as like the best fire type that was kind of in the lower tiers, and especially a special one, because I do have a lot of physical attackers, so I wanted some special attackers, and this seemed like the best special fire type that I could get at a cheaper price point. And again, I don't know why this just stuck out to me. It's just like, no, this is good. This is exactly what I need. And I think it is. It's Magmortar. This is actually already... I didn't even think about this. This is already just an insane answer into Amoonguss, just because it has Vital Spirit. Flame Body is still nice, but Vital Spirit just makes this an immediate, amazing answer into Amoonguss. Didn't even think about that. But that's really nice. Means we are affected by Rage Powder, but this thing's got an insanely good special attack stat, 125. Believe that is the highest special attack stat on the team, which is really cool. Not the best bulk. The special on that physical side, it's definitely not going to take many hits, and but the speed is actually not too bad for this team. It's a little bit faster than Dracovish. Dracovish being 75. This is 83, so it's a little bit faster. And the expected death, honestly, isn't that bad. With an Assault Vest, it could probably take a decent amount of hit, like, at least a couple of hits. A couple, like, neutral hits, and probably a super effective one. Like, I could easily see us taking, like, a Skull from Fiddy, even without the Assault Vest, potentially, so. But what sold me on it was literally just, it was a really powerful fire type. And it could easily work in Tailwind, and has potential to work in slower modes as well. It also has, like, some weird things about it. Most notably, the fact that it has priority in Mach Punch. But it can perform the role of a fire type that this team wants. It can perform defensive capabilities, but with those defenses and HP, probably not. But with things like Will-O-Wisp and Mystical Fire, and Scorching Sands and Helping Hand, it has options to play a supportive role. But for the most part, this is an offensive fire type. With Heat Wave or Overheat or Flamethrower, as well as some pretty reasonable coverage. Like, it's a very rare fire type that actually gets Thunderbolt, which, you know, helps with those other bulky waters that I might be worried about with things like Dracovish. And technically can get buffed by the electric terrain from Tapu Koko as well, so kind of pairs well there. Has Clear Smog as well, that actually could come in handy for any setup strategies. Anything that starts like trying to bulk up and just get away with it, we've got that for. I don't know if Helping Hand is actually illegal. I will have to look at Helping Hand. And see if that is legal. But that feels like it would be. But, you know, Taunt as well. Has some, like I say, it's few and far between in terms of utility. It's more so the fact that it is a really offensive special attacker. That this team definitely could deal with. That helps deal with some of the grass types that I was worried about. So, continuing on with that, we have 2 water types and a fire type, and I knew I wanted a grass type. Looking at the grass types, I knew I had to go low. And there's a lot of bad grass types. But once again, just like Magmortar, there was a couple that stuck out to me. One was Sceptile, because I was looking at Unburden. Didn't end up actually getting an Unburden user, and Sceptile isn't the best Pokemon anyway. But I was definitely looking at Sceptile. But another one I was looking at, kind of caught my eye, and I was like, this Pokemon's this cheap? This seems, like, reasonable. So, I ended up grabbing Appleton. Appleton was only 4 points, and I was like, but 4 points? This Pokemon does not seem that bad. It's also got base 30 speed, so this can really function in Trick Room, and actually deal reasonable damage. Apple Acid is obviously really nice, and not the best coverage, but it's certainly there. Physical or special, potentially, just because 85 isn't bad. Gyro Ball, obviously great on a slow Pokemon. But it can even play a decently offensive role as, like, on the special side. Obviously 3 great abilities as well, like Gluttony and Ripen are really nice. It's a second Dragon as well, but that's not too big of a deal. Dracovish and Appleton definitely won't be coming to, like, the same game, most likely. I can't see that. Obviously, this also has Iron Defense Body Press strats going for it as well. Sucker Punch is definitely interesting on such a slow Pokemon. But for the most part, this just seemed like a really solid grass type. Again, it has Leech Seed, and like I said, Leech Seed, like Iron Defense stuff. Recover as well. That's really cool. Like, I don't know much about this Pokemon. But just like looking at it on paper and seeing how cheap it was, I thought this Pokemon, there's definitely possibilities for this Pokemon to come up. As a Pokemon that can probably function on the special side in Trick Room. I thought at 4 points I'll take it, because obviously I've got one Pokemon that can kind of go do well in Trick Room, and that's Gigalith. But I didn't want that to be my only like a way to be offensive in Trick Room. So Especially because Gigalith sometimes will have to perform more of a defensive role on teams. Whereas Appleton can also play defensive roles on teams, but also can form as a specially offensive Trick Room Sweeper. Which I think is pretty cool. So. And again, it's got 3 great abilities, and if it is going to be offensive with, say, a Life Orb or something, it means it doesn't need to... It can just run Fake Fat and just not be ×4 weak to ice. So, it's pretty cool. So, I came back to me, and by this point, I kind of looked at what was left, and I saw there was no Steel type that I wanted. I was like, I'm just going to have to pass up Steel. It sucks, but we'll have to do it. So, but I still wanted a Ground type. I forget what the reason for the Ground typing was. I think it was literally just because, like, I didn't want opposing electric types to just abuse my own terrain. I thought that could be an issue, so I knew I wanted to make sure I had a Ground type. So I ended up grabbing Nidoqueen. It still resists the fairies, which I was pretty happy with. Could go physical or special. I've used Nidoqueen, I think, multiple times, so I'm not going to go into it too much here. But Nidoqueen's a really interesting one. It has got a great stab combination, as well as great coverage. Physical or special, with the Life Orb Sheer Force. Has some decent utility. Again, I won't go into it too much more than that, because I've talked about Nidoqueen before, and it is a pretty good Pokemon, especially in non-max formats. So, but yeah, so we got the Nidoqueen. This was only 11 points as well, so we had some points to work with. But after that, there was a utility Pokemon that I was kind of looking at that was super cheap. And I kind of wanted to make sure I had, because there's some weird, fun applications that I'm excited to see if it will work. But because it was so cheap, I thought I may as well pick it up. It might be on someone's radar. Why not? So I grabbed Delibird. It was 2 points, and it has Fake Outs. It is a faster Fake Out than Scrafty. I thought this can come into play. It's an okay support Pokemon for the most part. I actually have used support Delibird in the past. There was a mono-type VGC tournament we did, and I was mono flying, and I actually used Delibird there. So, and I used support Delibird, just to have Fake Out pressure, because the only flying type I think I had access to that could Fake Out. So, but yeah, with Fake Out and Helping Hand, and just maybe even Destiny Bond, and maybe just throwing out a couple random ice attacks. It definitely has possibilities. There's maybe some room for some ice shot stuff, but I don't really see it with this team. So, I just thought, you know what? I just feel like Delibird has some potential. Oh, who am I kidding? We know the reason why I drafted Delibird. Everyone's gonna figure it out eventually. Hi, I've got a Delibird with Ice Shard, and I've got a Torn T. That's the reason. Like, this is just something people have to be ready for. Like, I'm gonna do it at some point, and it's gonna be funny. But Weakness Policy Torn T with Delibird is definitely gonna be something I want to try at some point. And if you're not ready for it, you're gonna lose. So, there we go. There's the Delibird. For 2 points, I figured that was worth it. Even if it never works, it's at least an option. And if I just bring it in preview, it's got to be prepared for, so. And that left us with one Pokemon left, sorry. Not 1 point. Actually, a good amount of points. So, we ended up going with a Pokemon I saw, and I was like, you know what? This seems alright. Why not? Go with Cleffa. That's right, little old Cleffa. Not Clefable, not even Clefairy. Cleffa. Because it has Friend Guard. I was like, that's really cool. You know, it's just a super cheap Pokemon with Friend Guard. But there's no Follow Me. Now, did I realize this when I drafted it? Yes, I did. There is a reason I did this. Friend Guard, I just thought, like, was a pretty solid option, even just on such a baby Pokemon. Because if I just needed a little bit extra bulk on a Pokemon, just to take a hit, Clefairy's there to do it, so. But it was 1 point. I had 4 points left over. Because someone actually took over the team with Lando T, Metagross, and Excadrill. I want to thank Paraic, because after they took over the team, they said, after the draft we'll sort it. So we don't have Nidoqueen. In Grace we fixed it, and we do have the Excadrill. I only took Clefairy because I didn't have any points left if I wanted the Excadrill. So we've got Excadrill and Sand in both singles and doubles. We are sandstorming it up, baby. Call me the Rude, because we're in the sandstorm. Oh, it's so good. Honestly, I think Excadrill kind of functions better in Dynamax formats, to be honest. But I really wanted a Steel type to help deal with the fairies that I thought would be quite an issue. And this was easily the best offensive Steel type that was left. There was no offensive Steel type that would do it as well as Excadrill. And that was the main thing. It wasn't even just a ground type, it's a Steel type. But Excadrill and Sand, I mean, it's a monster. It's insane. I've drafted it in both singles and doubles for a reason. It wins games. So now we have 2 potential Sandrush Pokemon, but it's not just Sandrush. Both Dracovish and Excadrill function very well in Tailwind. And both have Middling to... Excadrill is a little bit faster in 88, but Middling to higher speeds, meaning they also maybe only need an Icy Wind or so. Excadrill obviously has the added bonus that you can just go for Mold Breaker. So against things like Rotom or Mimikyu, which may be an issue, we have those options. And I think Mimikyu is definitely something at least worthy to note of, because if it isn't apparent, my team much prefers its faster mode. I think that is something very clear about it, but it has options to go for a slow mode if it wants to. So, here's the team as it is. The Everton Espeons are right here. So here we are: Koko, Dracovish, Scrafty, Slowking, Taunty, Gigalith, Magmortar, Appleton, Excadrill, Delibird, and Clefairy. I don't know, I couldn't tell you why, but this feels just solid. It feels really well-rounded. There's some really powerful threats that people really have to be ready for, but there's also a lot of Pokemon that could just deal reasonable damage, as well as being supporting. Things like Scrafty, Koko, Torn, Slowking even. Gigalith will do really good damage. Magmortar will do really good damage. Appleton, honestly, I can see myself bringing, which is crazy for such a low-tier pick. We've got cute stuff with Delibird, and then just Clefairy's honestly just kind of looking there, just being happy, honestly. But I think this team really has a lot of potential. The only sad things I think, I'm not... You know, I missed out on Redirection, which is unfortunate, but I had to make some sacrifices. I missed out on any terrain support with Koko. There's no real benefit to Koko's electric terrain other than buffing itself. But trying to get anything to buff, to partner with it, without sacrificing essentially Trick Room, or either Trick Room or Excadrill, which would, like, if I was going to make like a support with Koko for, you know, dealing with, you know, having basically like a Alolan Raichu, then I'm really just not good against grass types. So I had to make some sacrifices. But for the most part, I don't know why, but this feels really synergistic. A lot of the pieces feel like they really synergize well together. We've got some really clear direction for this team to go. There's a lot of things that have to be prepared for, like I say, Dracovish and Excadrill, both in Sand, have to be respected, as well as really offensive, good pivoting pieces that help position these powerful Pokemon, like Koko and Torn, great options to set up Trick Room between Scrafty and Slowking. Magmortar honestly just feels right on this team, just to help deal with some of the grass types, as well as steel types as well. This team could struggle with some steals. So Appleton has potential use. Delibird obviously has its use. Like, I feel like every Pokemon on the team, obviously other than Cleffa, just 1 point, just kind of sitting there. There's nothing good in 1 point. But I feel like even Delibird at 2 just has a use, and I feel like that's good. So, yeah, I'm really happy with this team, honestly. So, I'm really looking forward to using this. Again, I'm apparently the Sand King, just because I'm using Sand in both singles and doubles. Never my intention, but it just happened to be that way. I'm also expecting people to be teching for me, because obviously this definitely... There's a lot of Sand-focused strategies on this team, so I'd expect people to be teching for me. But because this team has other options to go for, especially because both Excadrill and Dracovish don't need Sand to be good. That's what I like about them. They don't need Sand to be good. They just become extremely dangerous in Sand. That's what I like about them. So, even if people are taking it against Sand specifically, you know, Priority Rain Dance, things like that, I feel good about, you know, using these Pokemon. Even counter-weathering. Such as Rain. Do you want to bring Rain against Dracovish? Ew. I don't know. So, I'm sorry. Do you want to bring Rain against Dracovish, Coco, Taunty? Like, that's half a Rain team. So, I don't know. I don't know why, but this team just really fits well together. So, I'm really excited to use it. But that is it. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll stop rambling. And I'll see you guys for the next battles. They're going to be hopefully coming up soon. So, look forward to it. I'm super excited, so I hope you guys are too. Take it easy, everyone, and peace.